Hello again from my front porch. Actually, a little relaxed looking today. A little scruffy, got a Hawaiian shirt thing. It was a work from home day today. I actually, it was a little bit of a I won't say a lazy day, because I had a lot of work to do, actual work. But last night was a bit of a harrowing experience. Got to drive home in a closest thing to a monsoon I think I will ever be in. It was not my, in fact, it was the scariest drive home I've ever had. And I've driven through snowstorms and all kinds of stuff. It was scary. It was. There were times when I wasn't exactly sure how things were going to turn out, but I went slow and diligently, and the little white line on the side of the road was my friend, even though I could only at times see just little slivers of it just right in front of my car and nothing else. Anyway, so yeah, that was an ordeal last night, and so today I had work to do, but I was like, you know what? I'm not getting too worked up about anything else, including making myself look good. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to chat a little bit about something that's big in the news right now, and to illustrate that concept, I also thought I'd take advantage of once again bragging about this wonderful toy spaceship thing here I got, because I'm just so proud of having it. So I thought, hey, I can work it in. This will be awesome. But so here's the thing. It's this topic of unrealized capital gains. And the reason that it's in the news is because one of the presidential candidates, Kamala Harris, has floated the idea of a proposal to tax unrealized capital gains on people who have a net income or a net value, I should say a net worth of $100 million or more. And so what I've seen on social media is a lot of back and forth about this topic, where there are some who clearly don't really understand what the topic is about. Some who are trying to understand, and I applaud them for that, for trying to understand. And then there are some who actually mock and ridicule people for discussing it by saying things like, well, I didn't know I had so many friends who have had $100 million or more to be worried about this tax on unrealized capital gain. Well, I think that last one is probably the most ignorant statement of them all. Because the proposal that's being bandied around only is supposed to target people of $100 million or more. However, the concept itself is one that is worthy of discussion. It is one that is worthy of education. And the only reason why we would not want people to be well informed on this is because we're trying to get away with something. We don't want them to understand what it is. Myself personally, both as a political cynic and as a former candidate for office, I am always skeptical whenever I hear anyone talking about taxes, claiming that, well, it's only going to impact these people. It's only targeted at this group right here. I'm always skeptical of that, because number one, I'm not an economist, obviously, but even I am aware of the fact that the economy doesn't work in segments. They're not little bubbles around different parts of the economy, that when something impacts this piece of the economy here, there will be a ripple effect that impacts other elements of the economy. You want any other example of that, just look what's going on all over in parts of Iowa and beyond, with John Deere announcing that they were going to move part of their operation out of Iowa into Mexico, actually, but doesn't matter where to, out of Iowa, and what the impact has been on a number of other businesses here in the state of Iowa that depended on selling or providing resources and materials to John Deere. And then you take that ripple effect even farther, that, okay, if the people working at those companies start losing their jobs, then they're not making money, which means they're not going to be spending money in their local economy at restaurants and shops. They're not going to be able to afford their mortgages. They're not going to be, and there's just this domino effect of negative economic impact, because one employer, John Deere, decides we're going to relocate a significant chunk of our operations somewhere else. That's an example of where something that's done only, and well, it's only this factory in Iowa. That's the only one impacted. No, it's not. It may be the only John Deere thing impacted there in Iowa, but then there's that impact on other areas. Things don't work in a vacuum. And so the same thing is true with this whole unrealized capital gains. It's important for us to understand that even if it's valid, even if it is implemented and all that stuff, the notion that it only is going to impact those making $100 million or more and that no other part of the economy is going to feel a ripple effect from that, that is absolute naivete. That is just not practical at all. But even more than that, again, the political cynic in me, I also believe that once we give, as we the people, that is, once we give our approval to a new type of tax being implemented. Right now, it's targeted to those making $100 million or more because, well, none of us are in that bracket, as I see the mockery on social media about. And so we shouldn't worry about it. It doesn't concern us. We don't make that much money. Yeah, but once the precedent is set that tax can be implemented, there will come a point down the road, and it may not be as far as we might think. There will come a point down the road where that threshold will be lowered, and the group will be expanded. And you say, well, but it'll never come down to the point where I'm at, to the money that I make. I don't know. And then others will say, well, but it doesn't matter. I don't have anything to worry about. I don't have any unrealized capital gains. And that is where I wanted for us to be able to talk a little bit today. Now, most of the unrealized capital gains are targeted at financial investments. Okay, so I'm going to state that right up front because that's not the example I'm going to use. I'm going to use this toy as my example to illustrate what unrealized capital gains are. But when the whole tax conversation is going on, it's really more about alleged income that's on paper at least, and so that's really where that's coming from. Unrealized capital gains on investments, on interest from different things, different financial products, that kind of stuff. So that really is the context where that's being done. But again, because I was looking for yet another opportunity to show off my toy, I worked up this analogy. I worked up this scenario in which I could use this to sort of help illustrate a mental image of what unrealized capital gains actually means. And understand this conversation. I'm not here to say whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm just trying to talk the facts about it. And so all that stuff I just said about how taxes often be done, that's just my perception of the reality of how government and taxation works and would still work in this scenario as well. So that's that. Now let's shift to part 2 here, where we talk about an example of it. So this is the Eagle transporter from the TV show Space 1999. I was just looking to see if I could show you. I think I got my pilot guys down inside. I don't know if you can see that there. But and this part comes off, the legs and stuff, and inside there's all the cool stuff inside. This was made in 1976, and I liked the show Space 1999. I really enjoyed watching it. It was just that era right before Star Wars, because Star Wars came out in 1977. Space 1999 went on the air in 1975, and this again was manufactured in 1976. So this is just that little brief window there before Star Wars sort of took over what science fiction was defined to be. But anyway. This guy here, oh man, it's like 2.5 feet long. It's a big, see, it's got the rocket boosters in the back and everything, and it's a really cool looking ship. I mean, whether you even watch the show or not, it's a cool looking ship. But as he continues to brag in his absolute utter drooling geekdom, but this ship originally sold, if my memory serves correct. This sold for around $50-$60. back in 1976, which was a lot of money back then. Now, at the time, I had just started delivering newspapers. Now, I was born in 67. This was made in 76. And so that means that I was only 9 or 10 years old when this came out. And you may be saying, Paul, what do you mean you're delivering newspapers? Well, that's because I was. At the age of 9, I wanted to deliver newspapers. And so I had my mom sign the contract for, because I don't know if it's still the way newspaper carriers are done today, but back then newspaper carriers, you were an independent contractor. You did not actually work for the newspaper. You purchased the newspapers from the newspaper office, and then you delivered them, and then you were responsible for going around and collecting the money, which you collected so that you could turn around and pay more money to the newspaper that you were buying your newspapers from. That's how it was done. And so every newspaper carrier was signing a contract, and all of us who were underage had your parents sign off saying, you know, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, and I'm in business for myself. So at the tender age of 9 years old, I owned my very first business. I was delivering newspapers. And so I was out there and hard worker. My dad jokes that that my mom had to adjust my newspaper bag to shorten the strap over the shoulder because I was dragging on the ground. And so she had to shorten that up. I'm sure if there were any pictures of me, I probably was leaning way over the side. But I did it. I did that job for many years actually, on right up to high school time. The money was good. I thought it was fantastic at the time, obviously. As a 9-year-old, you know, you think $10 is good, especially back in 76, you know. But then this thing is there, and I wanted one of these. And the local department store in Carroll called Cernette had a magnificent toy section. I thought it was the most magical place on earth. Granted, I had nothing to compare it to, but still, I thought it was the most magical place. And I wanted one of these. I wanted it so bad that I used their layaway program, and I put one on layaway, and I was making payments on it. But just at that young, tender age, and not really understanding how money all worked and everything, I didn't keep up the payments and wound up losing the item on layaway, then the timeout kind of thing, and then it was gone, and I never got the chance again. Well, relatively recently, within the last year or so, I just, for whatever reason, I was bitten by the bug that I really needed one, really needed one. So I found them. I found this guy on eBay, and I was able to buy it for about $350. And then I've also purchased some other add-on things, because the one that I found was not complete. It was missing some things that were worn, and so I found those pieces elsewhere and ordered them, and you know, swapped things out, and you know, refurbished it, so to speak. And so but you know, if I just take it at that $350 amount that I paid for it, well, that would be the difference between what it would have been, they'll say $50 when I wanted to buy it back in 76, and what it would be now, $350. Now, I say what it would be now, but the reality is I've looked online on this thing, and all fixed up. Now, this is not in pristine condition. You can see some of the stickers a little bit worn there and stuff, and it's still missing some little pieces I have to find, snap back on there and stuff. But you know, I've been acquiring the figures and the little small weapon things. They had one of them, all that stuff, and eventually I will have this complete, and it will be as it would have been back in 76, maybe even better than it would have been at the time, and then it will be, you know, technically worth more. As I've looked up ones that have all the pieces and the bells and whistles with it, those are valued as high as $1,000. Now, I say all of this to say, okay, let's pretend. Let's do a what if game now. Let's say I had bought this back in 1976 when I was a kid for $50, and I still had it today. Based on what I paid for this on eBay, I know $350 is at least $350 in that range is kind of the minimum there. but certainly the more complete it was, if I had taken good care of it and no pieces were broken or lost, it could be upwards of $1,000 in value. Now, if we go to what the unrealized capital gains topic means, that means that I could be taxed, in theory, if we use this as my example, I could be taxed. I paid $50 for it. We'll just go with the $350 because this is not in mint condition $1,000 level. But so we'll just say the $350 level. So that would mean that I have currently a net profit of $300. If I had bought it for $50 and it's now worth $350, that means there's a positive gain of $300. Now, do I have that $300 in my hands? No. Why not? Well, because I haven't sold it. Because I still own it. But if I did sell it, I could easily get $350. But I don't have that $300 because I haven't sold it. That's where the unrealized capital gain come in. Because if I did sell it, then I would have $350, take out $50 that I paid for it initially, $300 cash in my hand is my profit. That is my capital gain. However, I am not selling it. I just told you I'm still working on trying to fix this up. I have no plans. In fact, it'll probably be my kids who sell this when they're going through my stuff after I'm gone, trying to figure out what in the world is this thing. And I have no idea what they'll get for it then. They might not even get $350 because they may just be like, I don't know, here, kid, go play with it. I shudder to think about those things. But point being, I'm not selling it today. But an unrealized capital gain would mean that even though I'm not selling it, it is in my possession, I own it, and it could be valued at $350, which would mean a $300 capital gain had I bought it back then for $50 if I were selling it. And so the fact that I'm not selling it is irrelevant because now we're not taxing based on the capital gain of what I earned when I sold it. Now we're talking about taxing the unrealized, meaning I've not received it, the unrealized capital gain of $300 because it's worth $300 more now than it would have been when I bought it for $50. That's the unrealized capital gain that we're talking about. Now again, the argument is not about collectible toys. The argument is about investments, stocks, bonds, 401ks, other IRAs, other kinds of stuff that you draw interest payments from, and all kinds of other things like that. And so there could be a paper trail, and a lot of places will use that paper trail to show increased valuation that they might use then as collateral towards other endeavors they're using. They're not actually spending that money. They're just saying, but I could have this money if I sold it. And so they are using that valuation for other purposes. And so what the unrealized capital gains proposal says is, well, you are kind of tracking that as an example of what you say you're worth. So we should tax you on that. That would be like me going through all the collectible items that I have, and listing them all out, and then somebody saying, well, or even myself, if I were to say, you know what, I'm going to, I need to borrow some money from the bank, and they say, all right, well, you need to give us some collateral, then I might say, well, here's my list of collectible items. If I were to sell all of them, they'd be worth this much money. Now, I don't know of a bank that would accept that unless it was like really, really good collectible items. But in theory, that would be the similar analogy, because I have documented this is what I paid for it. This is what it could be today if I sold it. But I'm not planning to sell it. But if I sold it, it could be worth this much. And then saying to a lender or to somebody else I'm trying to use the capital collateral for to say, I am worth this. This adds into my net worth. So like Paul Smith has his net worth plus $300 because he's got this thing that if he sold he'd make $300 on it. So that's what that comes out to be. And so then you've got now this proposal that okay, well, but fine, if you're playing that game on paper that you're worth this much, that this is worth that much money, well then we might as well be taxing that. And to some, that'll be a totally logical scenario. Myself personally, I will say I'm not a fan of this. And the reason I'm not a fan of it is because it's not real money. I could be saying, well, this here is worth $1,000. Yep, it's worth $1,000. So that means if I sold today, I'd get a $950 profit. If I'm trying to, make it seem like I'm worth more than I am. Think about applying that with a stock, a bond, other investment thing. Well, so then someone from tax comes along and says, hey, your unrealized capital gain of $950 there, we're going to tax you on it. Yeah, but I don't actually have $950. I haven't actually sold it, and that would still require me finding somebody that's willing to pay $950 or $1,000 in that case to buy it. Without that, there's nothing. So the whole concept of the unrealized capital gain really is about taxing air. I mean, it's taxing something that literally does not actually exist except in someone's estimation of what they think something. And it kind of reminds me of that show was Storage Wars, where they're going into all the storage units and things, and the guys are digging through it or through their stuff, the locker they bought, and they go, well, there's this one and that's worth $50, and here's this and that's definitely worth 30. Oh, this one that's worth $100, and then the show adds out ching 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 ching, and then it says they made back their money. Well, unless they can find somebody who will actually pay those amounts that they've said, they haven't actually made any money on that locker. They have made nothing. They have only made assumptions based on estimates of what they think it might sell for. But if they don't sell it for that, it's not worth that. The same thing goes with any of this other stuff we're talking about with unrealized capital gains. It's unrealized because it has not actually been liquidated. It has not been sold. And therefore, it's unrealized. To then tax something that has not been turned into cash, to me that seems suspect. That just doesn't seem right. I don't care how much your net worth is, 100 million or more or less, I don't care. To tax something that's just smoke and mirrors, that seems, I mean, I hate to use the word because it's kind of strong, but it seems fraudulent to me. Because where's the proof that you actually have that much money? Well, you said you have that much money. Okay, well, so I could say a lot of things. Doesn't mean that it's true. And like in the case of this, I bought this for $350. And I'm fixing it up. It's going to be even better than what I got. And I'm confident I could sell it for at least $350 again to get my money back. From the original sell if I wanted to, but I have to sell it for more with the other enhancements I'm doing to it, obviously. But if I couldn't find it, if I needed money and I was looking to sell this and somebody came along and said, I'll give you $200 and I let them have it for that, I don't have a capital gains, I have a capital loss. Well, but what if I got taxed on the unrealized capital gain only to then actually turn around and sell the item or liquidate the assets and not get as much money out of them as I was taxed on? Government doesn't care. Government got their money. They don't care at all. But again, it goes back to there is no way to have a hard, fast determination of what the actual value of it is because it hasn't been liquidated. And so that's the sticky wicket, if you will, of the unrealized capital gain. Again, obviously, I'm not a fan of the concept, but I'm not a fan of most tax concepts. So take that for what it's worth. But in this particular case, I think there's a lot of gray area there. And I suspect we're going to hear more about that, and it's going to work its way through some of the debate systems. And if Vice President Harris does get elected president, then it'll be interesting to see what kind of a Congress she has to work with and whether she could even get such a thing implemented. Just because something's promised on the campaign trail by a presidential candidate does not mean it happens. It's just a reality. So anyway, I'm going to fly my spaceship back downstairs and put it back in its place of honor. But I want to take them. This has become a big deal. I mean, I don't know about you, but my social media on Facebook and on Twitter, a little bit on Instagram, but I mean, constant stuff about this unrealized capital gains. And so I thought, well, let's take a little time and unpack this a little bit and talk about it. Again, I'm not a financial expert, and so take my comments for what they're worth. I'll give you a secret. It's less than this. But when you see these things being discussed, especially during election year, take time to do a little research. Take time to look it up. Take time to make sure you are informed before you say whether you agree or disagree with something, or even determine how you feel one way or another on it. And please, I do honestly, genuinely ask, if you see people commenting about something or trying to raise issue or concern about something that you don't think it should impact them, like for example, people talking about concern over this unrealized capital gains thing, and you're like, I didn't know you had $100 million. Why are you worried about it? Please don't do that. It's totally valid for people to talk about these topics, even if it does not directly impact them personally, because if you are a smart thinking individual, you know that these things will ultimately impact you in some manner. And as I said before, the cynic in me believes that once something like this will get implemented, the target audience ultimately will also expand beyond just those making 100 million or more. So we want to be thoughtful about this. Do we really want this kind of thing implemented? If not, well, then let's make sure it doesn't happen. But if you're okay with it, then cool, great. All right, well, Eagle and I are going to take off. So with that, I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.